couple of weeks ago, one writer says, I asked, let's see, let's go to a new question. Here's a woman, this is a little bit involved, who wrote and said that her husband had been running for a year now. After we started Real Love 3 months ago, it got worse. And then she said that her husband left for 2 months and is now asking for no contact. And what she was worried about is she was feeling abandoned, wondered what to do because her husband had left her. And she wrote this week before last, and I didn't get to her question last week. And then I got a letter from her husband. And he said, my wife and I are having problems. We've been married for 20 years. Our relationship turned toxic. And I ran away, which is congruent with what his wife said, to Denmark for a period of 2 months to run away from our problems in our marriage and also to help turn around some of the financial problems in our marriage. We've been doing Real Love for 3 months or so together and separately, but it's working better for my wife than for me. And how do we stay close in the 2 months or so that we're separated? I'm not sure that I want to remain married anymore. I'm not sure what I want. It sucks to wake up 41 years old and figure out that I was never loved by anyone, including myself. Anyway, he goes on to describe a little bit more how his life is miserable. And before I got a chance to answer this, so I'd gotten a letter from her and then a letter from him, I got an email from the man's wife, the woman I first heard from, and it turns out that he didn't write the second email at all. She did. She'd written both of them, and she wrote the second email for him, trying to get advice on his behalf. And then she responded. She wrote another email. The third email, remember now, she's written all three of them, saying this: my husband is a runner and ran to Denmark to work, and last week I was so desperate that I went on his email and wrote to you. You offered that he could call you, but it was really me. I'm so sorry it's created an even bigger problem in our relationship than before because I got caught. I was desperate and I apologize to you for that. You offered him a call and it was not fair. I was drowning and I wanted you to answer our stuff on the call, and when you didn't answer immediately, I wrote to you as my husband, and I'm sorry. And then she went on to describe some of their problems, emotional and financial and so on, and it's pretty miserable. They're having difficulties financially, emotionally, trouble in their marriage. They've got 3 children. She said, I'm a clinger and a controller, and I kind of noticed the controlling part since she's writing letters for both of them. And she says, please help me, and then she goes on with more and more of her fears. And it's, now addressing the writer of the letter, it's obvious that you're having pretty serious problems in your relationship, as many people do. But your fears are what are causing you more problems than anything else at this point. So it's very often the case that our problems themselves don't cause us nearly as much difficulty as our fears about the problems. It's our fears that are the killers, because we can address problems one by one. We can solve problems. But once we become afraid enough, fears become absolutely irrational, and we start doing really crazy things when we're afraid. If you and I have differences of opinion, you and I can rationally address our differences of opinion. We can solve almost any problems between us, no matter how different our opinions. But once you and I become afraid and we start responding to our fears with protecting behaviors, we are dead. And that is what's going on between you and your husband. Once you become afraid enough and you start protecting yourself by acting like a victim, by clinging, by lying, by all the things that you've done with me just in a handful of emails. Well, it's little wonder that when you do enough of these things, he becomes a combination of frustrated, frightened, annoyed, tired, exhausted, and to the point that he would want to run to, in this case, literally the other side of the planet. I mean, the man is in Denmark, for heaven's sake. So that doesn't make it your fault. I'm not blaming you. I'm not saying he's in Denmark because of you. But I am saying that your protecting behaviors, your getting behaviors, clinging, acting like a victim, controlling, all these things that you're doing have certainly contributed to his being in Denmark. People don't tend to run to Denmark when they're being unconditionally loved, just to give you a clue. So what's going to be necessary here is a great deal of truth-telling on your part and a great deal of unconditional loving, as much as you can do. Now, it may be that at this point, you probably don't have a whole lot of unconditional love to offer, but you certainly can tell the truth. You certainly can contact him, and with whatever experience you have with real love, like you said here, 3 months worth, you can describe your getting and protecting behaviors. You can say, I've been lying out my ears. I've been telling you this and this and this, and what that isn't true. I've been blaming you for this and this and this when that isn't true. I've been writing emails, and that's clearly a lie. That's just lying. I've been attacking you. I've been criticizing you in the following 10 ways. You should be able to list 10 ways that you attack him easily. Most of the time when somebody runs to Denmark, they're feeling attacked. It's very likely that you're a clinger. People tend to run from clingers. Very likely that you act like a victim. People tend to run from victims. So you should be able to come up with quite a list of getting and protecting behaviors. If you can't, you sit down with some people who have more experience with real love than you do, and you describe some of your last 30 interactions with your husband, and they'll help you point out your getting and protecting behaviors. Then I would suggest that you go through all of these with him. You're simply telling the truth with him will be huge. You describe to him what you've been doing, and then you say, I'm not trying to get you to do anything, but I believe that as I'm able to see my behaviors better, I believe that I'll be able to work this out better with you. I'll be able to be more accepting and loving toward you. So what would you like to do? Then you turn it over to him instead of trying to be controlling with him. Instead of saying, now please come home. Because if you say, now please come home, then you will have told him all of that truth about yourself just to get him to come home. Well, see, then you weren't really truth-telling. Then you were just clinging. You were using the truth to get something. You were using the truth to cling. So you really have to just tell the truth and let it go and see what he wants to do. I would further suggest that if possible, you give him an opportunity to speak to somebody who has more experience with real love. That eventually, if he's interested, only if he is, don't push him, that you see if he'd be willing to have a 3-way phone conversation. 3-way as in him, you, and somebody who's experienced with real love. To see if the two of you can work out some of these issues in the presence of somebody who can help you have a productive conversation without all this getting and protecting. The two of you have obviously had so many miserable conversations, you don't even know how to have a productive, loving conversation. So there's a great deal that the two of you can do that's not being done. And that's just kind of a beginning. You just have a whole lot that you need to learn how to do. That's just a superficial overview. That'll get you started, and if you have more questions, let me know. Another writer says, I'm 52, and over 32 years ago, I found love at first sight. Through the years, we went our separate ways and married, as in different people. Since then, I have divorced, but I have yet to find a, quote, true love. Does love at first sight truly exist? And am I a fool to look for it? I have looked for years and can't find any kind of love. Can you help me? Well, yeah, love at first sight does exist, and almost invariably, as in 99.9% of the time, when we do fall in love, we fall down and bang our heads and get some sort of, injury, because you don't fall into genuine unconditional love. You don't accidentally fall into a meaningful, unconditional concern for somebody else's happiness. When a guy looks across a crowded room, sees a woman and goes, guys, I think I'm in love, he doesn't mean he's fallen into a concern for her. He's saying, I think I have found a woman who's going to satisfy me. That's what falling in love means. And that is rarely a great prognostication for a meaningful, healthy relationship. So that's not what we're looking for. It isn't. It's all very romantic. It's all very dramatic. It's all very exciting. But, a shot of cocaine is exciting. Jumping off a cliff is exciting. And in fact, there's really a lot of similarities between jumping off a cliff and falling in love. Frankly, jumping off a cliff is very fun, but then you get to meet the bottom. And falling in love is a lot like that. There was a guy, a French guy named de Rougemont, who a long time ago, 100 plus years ago, wrote a book called Love in the Western World. And boy, he really nailed it when he said that falling in love has a very, very strong resemblance to one thing, death, and really has a similar end. It's just, we have this just romantic affair with falling in love, and yet it ends in death, emotional or physical, most of the time. What we need to learn to do is to find genuine love, unconditional love. And if we will do that, if we will learn to find a companion for whom we can develop a concern for their happiness, we can learn to find really a profound form of the excited feeling. Just don't do it backward. We're in such a hurry is the problem. So look for the profound concern for somebody's happiness first, and then you can develop a really excited, wonderful feeling of being in love. Really. But you don't fall into it. You build up to it. It's way more fulfilling and lasts for a lifetime. Or, depending on your belief, forever. But to just fall into it, think about the rest of the metaphor. What happens after falling? You're on the floor and you stay there. Much more fun to build up to it and continue flying there. This falling in love thing is really kind of silly. Here's a woman who says, I'm terrified with dealing with my finances, the act of filling in my checkbook, Quicken, software, and so on, balancing it at the end of the month, gives me the sweats, hyperventilating, and extreme anxiety. It isn't a problem with a lack of knowledge or how to do it, but a problem that I just lock up, and I cannot do it. I have no consistency. Occasionally I make a big effort in figuring out where I stand when I absolutely need to, and then I just let it slide until the next crisis forces me to get it done. Any suggestion on how to stop the downward spiral? Now, this would appear to be a question about a task, accomplishing a thing like balancing a checkbook. What in the world does this have to do with real love? Everything has to do with real love. When we have spent an entire lifetime not feeling unconditionally loved. We've become conditioned to fill our lives with imitation love. And then we get to where everything becomes about the scorekeeping of imitation love. So then we pursue imitation love our whole lives long, and everything becomes scored according to how much we get. And we get to where we pursue everything that gives us a big enough score. Well, after we get to a certain age, for most of us it's in our late 30s, 40s, we get to the place where we realize that, frankly, almost nothing we do after that point, we realize after enough failures, is going to get us enough imitation love where it's ever going to make us happy. And at that point, who cares anymore? And so then we start to experience midlife crisis. We start to experience the place where who cares what we do in our careers. And then doing anything like taking risks, doing certain tasks, becomes nothing but, it's not going to make us happy, so it can become nothing but a source of risk and failure. And so, your entire inner being, your entire emotional psyche screams at you when you go to balance a simple thing, do a simple thing like balance the checkbook, screams at you, why? Why bother? Why bother to do this? It's not going to make you happy, so I refuse. And you just can't bring yourself to do it. There's no imitation love reward for doing it anymore. It isn't going to make you happy. If you go to balance your checkbook and you find a mistake, you're just going to feel worse about yourself. So you can't even make yourself do it. So what's the solution? Well, you've got to get a great deal more love in your life, just to where you can get to the place where you feel like life's worth living, so that you can simply do the tasks that just, have to be done. And when you get to the really, frankly, really boring, drudgy, risk-filled, nasty tasks like balancing your checkbook, before that has to be done, call somebody who loves you. Ask them to hold your hand right before or even sometimes during balancing the checkbook. And I'm not kidding you, it will help you do jobs like that. I've helped a lot of people before they do tasks like that, and it will make a difference. Here's somebody who says, my partner seems at most times to be loving and relatively happy. It's relatively if you've been drinking. He tells the truth about himself to a couple of people, but I don't know about the quality of these calls and how much truth-telling he's actually doing. I recently discovered that he's been getting up in the middle of the night and binging on junk food. He should give me a call. I'll do it with him. I asked him about it and how long he's been doing it. He said for a couple of months now. I told him I was concerned about his happiness and told him that I'm available to talk. What can I offer to be loving to him? Should I offer to sit with him in the middle of the night and be with him while he's doing this, just to let him know that I still love him and that he doesn't have to hide this behavior? Oh, you are so close to what the answer is. I mean, that might even be the answer. I'm not suggesting that your answer is like off. But it's absolutely huge that in no way do you imply that you're trying to control his behavior or that you're offering a solution. For example, it's very tempting to say to somebody like this, well, when you get up in the middle of the night, maybe you should eat some carrots instead. People just love to offer well-meaning, little hints, little dietary modifications. Well, would you like me to prepare you some healthy watercress sandwiches? I promise you, if he wanted a watercress sandwich instead of chocolate-covered peanuts, he'd make some. No, he doesn't need any hints. He doesn't need any corrections. He doesn't need any suggestions. But it would be very helpful if he just had somebody he could be honest with. That's what telling the truth and feeling unconditionally loved is. So you could say something like, he needs understanding. And so you could say to him, I understand entirely why you would want to get up in the middle of the night and want to binge eat. Tell him, I understand. You could say, I've been in emotional pain 1,000,000 times in my own life. I may not binge eat, but I've lied, I've acted like a victim, I've gone shopping to feel better, I've given some examples of what you do when you feel bad. And then you say, and I know that I feel oodles better when I can talk to people about what I do. I just know that works because I feel loved. And all I'm going to say to you is that I think you'd feel better if you didn't have to hide it. And I would just like to volunteer. You could raise your hand, volunteer to be there for you to talk to. You could either wake me up and tell you. You could tell me the next morning, whatever. And then don't just drop it, because you got to remember, he's only doing this and hiding it. That's why he does it in the middle of the night. He's hiding it because he's a little ashamed to talk about it. So you can't just drop it. You're going to have to actually help him with some of the words, or help him with the follow-up. So you're going to have to say to him, so what would you like? Which are the following options would you like? And list them for him. And have him pick one, because he's going to feel ashamed. When people are ashamed, they can't fill in the blank. They can't do it. They sit there with their heads hung and go, and when you say, what do you want? They go, I don't know. I mean, it's like when a parent confronts the child who's done something wrong. Think about it. He feels already like he's doing something wrong. When the parent confronts the child who's done something wrong, it says, why did you do that? What does the child always say? It's such a moron question from a parent. Child always goes, I don't know. So stupid question. So you say to your partner, so which of the following choices would you like? I could, you could wake me up, which is probably not very likely. You could talk to me about it the next day. He may still say, I don't know. Then you need to offer him the golden choice, which is the most helpful choice. In fact, you may even say, why don't I do this? You'd say, why don't I, once a week or so, why don't I just ask you how it's going with the binge eating? See, he's more likely to answer a direct question about how he's doing than he is to volunteer to you how he's doing. People who are hiding a habit don't come out with it, but they'll answer a direct question. They will. I mean, I was an addict a lot of my life, and there was no way I was going to say, go out, get up in the morning and to say to people, did you know that I used last night? No way. But if another addict said to me, so did you use this week? I'd say, uh-huh. I'd answer a question. So say that to him. Would you mind it? What I'll do is, once a week I'll just ask how you're doing, and I'll have no judgment about it. But boy, I tell you, you better mean it when you say it, because if you say, I'll ask you once a week, and I'll try not to have any judgment about it. Well, you're dead, because it's obvious you do. It's the secret of it that's killing him. Here's a question. My unmarried relationship has come to an end. The loving thing to do seems to be respect and support their decision. Their meaning his or her. I'm not sure which it is. But then part of me wants to try to fix things. We're still speaking occasionally, and there are things I'd like to say, but I'm not sure how to determine if what I want to say is truly loving, or I'm just trying to be manipulative to get back together. So my question is, if your relationship's come to an end, and it's really come to, it's an unmarried relationship, like you say here, and it's really come to an end, what do you want? Do you want an unconditionally loving relationship, or do you want to wallow in imitation love and getting and protecting behaviors for the rest of your life? Because it sounds like you're still not sure. You're still asking yourself questions. We're still speaking, and I'm not sure if I'm, being manipulative to get back together? If you're not sure, then part of you is still manipulating to get back together. Really. If you're not sure, then part of you is still manipulating. You have to make a decision. If you're not sure if you made a decision, then, you've still made a decision to wallow in garbage. Once you've made an absolute, concrete decision that you don't want to eat garbage, isn't it pretty clear? I've made that decision. When I walk down the street on garbage day, which in our town is Monday, I have no doubt in my mind, none, whether I want to open the neighbor's garbage and bury my face in the garbage cans. Do you? So I don't ever go, let me think, do I want to bury my face in the garbage cans? No, I'm pretty sure of that. I'm positive. Whereas, look at your note here. You're not sure whether you want to bury your face in the garbage can still. You're still going, oh, well, maybe. No, you have to make a decision. I do or I do not want a relationship based entirely on real love. Once you make that decision, then when a relationship comes along that is not entirely based on real love, then you know that you're going to say no. And you're going to stay away from this one because it's pretty clear that this one is not. Or you wouldn't be going back and forth. Leave it. And learn more about unconditional love. Learn more about what it takes to be really loving. And start over. And it's way funner than it is constantly repairing a relationship that's not based on unconditional love. Like, whoa. I think I'm gonna wait on this question. I actually am gonna wait on this question. Here's a lady who says, I have read Real Love, Real Love and Marriage, and at the moment I'm downloading Real Love and Parenting. I recognize myself as using selfish and manipulative behaviors to gain love and approval. When in counseling, I was told that as a child I was basically invisible, and I know that I have for years had a victim personality, but I disguised it by considering myself to be self-sacrificing and loving. Now, that's a brilliant insight, because a lot of people think of themselves as being loving and self-sacrificing, but they're not. And you're recognizing that. And you can tell that you're not truly loving when you give things to people, you call it self-sacrificing, but then when people don't return to you as much as you give them, you feel either sad or irritated or disappointed or victimized. That's not self-sacrificing, and that is not loving. That's acting like a victim. I'm presently in a relationship with a man who is controlling and desperate for acceptance. I recognize that a lot of this is to gain acceptance and real love, and I've started putting into practice the principles in Real Love and Marriage and begun to see a difference in both his behavior and mine. However, before I really understood what was going on, my partner and I made a commitment to each other, and we moved in together with my 2 teenage girls. So you moved in together before you really quite understood what real love was. I understand now that this was part of my selfishness, and ultimately it was a disaster. It almost always is when people move in together too soon before they know what unconditional love is. We now live apart, but we see each other every day and spend as much time with each other as possible at the weekend. Unfortunately, during this time, my partner and I were very volatile, and as a consequence, my children now hold a lot of resentment toward him and he toward my eldest daughter. I have not made any attempt to control either of them in this situation, but it is very difficult. Without being overly critical of myself, I feel as if I have failed as both a mother and a partner, and I don't know how to bring it all together again. Maybe again I'm being selfish, but I really don't want to be told that. Yeah. The reason you don't want to hear that you failed or that you've been selfish is because you've always heard it in a terrible tone of voice. Now you need to hear it in a loving tone of voice. You've made many mistakes, including selfish mistakes. But you also need to hear, so what? They're just mistakes. All you need to learn now is how to do it better. So, big deal. Just keep listening. You continue. I can see that I have pandered to everybody's needs to get what in the end I want, and it's all blown up in my face. Of course, that's what happens when we try to win anybody's approval or to get what we want. My partner comes to our house. We bought it together when my youngest is here, and I can see that he's softening toward the eldest, but there seems to be an immense barrier involving his pain and hurt. The fact that I stood against him when he tried to discipline the children, and the fact that the children know he hit me, but he doesn't know that. In other words, he doesn't know that the children know that he hit me. So now tell me, isn't life complicated? Yes, I know that I've made it this way. What I don't get is that I find it easy to forgive. Why can't they? Why can't everybody else? So the question is, what can you do? And it's not that complicated. Everything begins to change when you just apply consistently 2 words. The truth, well, that would be 2 words, and love. So I guess it would be 3 altogether, or just truth and love. So what is the truth? You have screwed up a lot, not fun to hear, but really not so complicated when you know that now you can change it all. So you've made a lot of mistakes. You've been a victim. You've been angry. So is your partner. And the 2 of you first need to work on that. So I would suggest that you work through the marriage book together. And I mean like diligently work through the marriage book together. And I'm going to suggest a little bonus actually here. Not just to you, but to everybody who's listening. I'm in the process of completing, I'm about halfway through now, a little book. It's a new book, actually, that I'm writing called, let's see, I can't remember the title, 40 Days to Real Love and Happiness in Your Marriage. And what it is a workbook to accompany the Real Love and Marriage book. And I'm looking for 40 volunteers, 40 couples, to go through the 40-day workbook. And it's going to take the Real Love and Marriage book and divide it into 40 days where a couple will work through the Real Love and Marriage book over a period of 40 days. And it will give them questions to ask during those 40 days, exercises to do, and I'm also giving them a great deal of new content. So giving them examples of the answers to the questions that I'm asking, giving them additional examples of the content that's provided in the Real Love and Marriage book, and hopefully give people kind of a walkthrough of what it looks like to implement a powerful, loving marriage. So that, and what it also does is shows couples what couples meetings look like. I've suggested now to quite a number of couples that they meet every single day and talk about ways to implement the principles of real love and marriage in their relationship so that they actually work. And the workbook shows them how to implement those principles day by day for a period of 40 days so that when they get to the end of the 40 days, it becomes a kind of living part of their lives. So I suggest that you and your partner go through the 40 days. I only got it half written, but if you write to me now, I would actually prefer to send it to you now, because as you work through the kinks with me, we'll write this book together. Write to me at greg@reallove.com, and I'll send you the first half, and we'll kind of work out the kinks. So do the workbook, read Real Love and Marriage together, then as you two develop a more loving relationship, only as you two are more loving, then you increasingly tell the truth about your mistakes, the mistakes you've made as a mother, the mistakes your partner has made with you and with your daughters, that he tell the truth about those to them. Then all of you gather every day and read the Real Love and Parenting book together. Everything changes as we live true principles. So it's always again about loving and teaching. Constantly lovingly applying true principles in our lives, we can't help but become happier, more loving and happier. It just happens. But we have to apply the truth and love in steadily, incrementally, apply those in bigger and bigger doses. So, really important. Again, let me announce that we've got a seminar coming up in California, November 1st and 2nd. I suggest you go to the website and register for that. We have a new format entirely for the newsletter that's going to be coming out. I suggest you go to the website and register for the newsletter, because with every newsletter there will be a new blog coming out that is available only for people who register for the newsletter. So if you think that you're seeing the blog on the website, yes, there will be a blog on the website every couple of weeks, but there will be a blog coming out on the newsletter that's available only to newsletter subscribers. And you subscribe to the newsletter on the website. So if you're interested in getting the marriage workbook, you need to write to me personally so that you can get a copy of that, and then I'll need your feedback on that as we work through it together. Here's a lady who says, I attended your seminar, one of your seminars recently, and she says, my kids have cut me off for most of their adult life without any explanation or argument, just gone. They have never accepted that I am a lesbian, coupled with the fact that all of them seem to self-medicate with alcohol and more. The pain I feel seems worse than death. It has left such a hole in my heart. I know that I was not prepared to parent, as I don't feel that I myself was ever parented. My childhood was tumultuous. I've made amends to my children for being so ill-prepared to parent them, and how that may have affected their childhood. I know I did the best I could with what I had to work with. Where do I start now in applying real love? It has seemed hopeless for a while, so much silence from them. I love them so much, I would have given my life to give them life even now. You talked about the healing of your relationship with your son, which gave me hope. Please give me some guidance. So then I wrote to her. She had sent me an email. I asked her what she had done to make amends with her children, just to give me an idea. And she wrote, I did a personal inventory of my shortcomings, in other words, my parenting skills or lack thereof, and admitted my wrongs as suggested by 12-step programs. I did this verbally and written, giving them the chance to discuss these and other issues. At your seminar, you told of admitting your mistakes, but you did it much simpler. I, on the other hand, left myself wide open, as I would have done things much differently if I had my knowledge and insight today. My heart aches with the void that they have left. There's no closure. I do love them unconditionally, but I don't feel loved at all by them. It's such a pervasive sadness. So this is hard for parents to hear, but I'm going to give you several suggestions. You have to never, to paraphrase the words of Winston Churchill, never, never give up. Never give up. You keep loving them. But, now this is an important part, because you said here it's such a pervasive sadness, and you mentioned at least a couple of times here about the pain that you feel as a result of them not loving you. And if you feel pain as a result of them not loving you, then your love for them is probably not quite unconditional. And they feel your pain. So listen to what I just said. If you don't love me and I feel in pain because of it, so let's not make this about children. If you don't love me and I feel wounded, now mind you, I'm not making fun of you. I just want to show you what it feels like. But you choose not to love me for whatever reason. because I'm a lesbian, because I have brown hair, because I'm from Georgia, which is plenty of reason, because of whatever. But you don't love me, and I'm in pain because of it. And every time I see you, my pain leaks out because, honey, it will. We think we hide our pain. We don't. We show it in the way we walk. We show it in the way in our facial expressions. We show it in our tone of voice. It shows. If my pain is demonstrated around you every time I'm around, and I let you know that in some way you are responsible for my pain, do you think you're going to want to be around me more or less? Now think about this. I'll give you 60 seconds. No, I'll give you 3 seconds. You are not going to want to be around me. Who wants to feel responsible for somebody else's pain? Nobody. And I'm telling you, that's part of why your children don't want to be around you. Parenting is a one-way deal where you get to love them unconditionally and where they have zero responsibility for loving you. None. They're not responsible for loving you. They're not responsible for caring about you. They're not responsible for understanding whether you're a lesbian. They're not responsible for understanding you in any way. Zero. None. All they care about now is whether they feel loved by you. Period. Now, you may have to prove that over an exceptionally long period of time, and it may be entirely unfair. And you know, they don't care about that. It's just the way it is. Because you are the mama. And it's all your job. And it's just tough. So, it took me a long time to figure that out with my kids, but there you go. So, what do? You call them, and you email them, and you have to do this at a frequency that they're comfortable with. You don't want to overdo it, or they're going to feel like you're manipulating them, clinging to them, and trying to get something from them. So, you know, if you haven't contacted them in a long while, you want to build up to it. So, like, if you haven't contacted a kid in a year, you would initially want to contact them, like, you know, once a month. If you've contacted them more often than that, then you can do it more often than that. But, you know, let's just make this up. Eventually you want to build up to where you're contacting them once a week or so. And boy, you just stay in contact with that kid. And so you email them and you call them and you send them a gift once in a while. And every time you contact this kid, it's like you talked to him yesterday. There's never any inclination of, well, let's see, I haven't heard back from you. Well, let's see, I've called you the last 85 times in a row because, gosh, I got higher than that with one of my sons. Oh, we got up to 100 or more times where I called and that kid never called back. You just keep calling and writing and whatever it is, and that's how they figure out that it's unconditional. No kidding. No impatience, no, let's see, I've filled up your voicemail box on your cell phone to overflowing to where I can't even leave messages anymore. Let's see, does your cell phone still work? No, nothing. You just keep at it. And eventually they figure out that you love them because that's all they care about. That's all they want to know. Does mom love me? But you can't become impatient and you can't want anything back from them. And you cannot feel sad that they don't love you. You're not entitled. Sorry, sweetie, you're not. So you're going to have to get all the love that you can from adults, from people who are not your children, because you can't get it from them. It's the way life goes, sweetness. And your children will someday be richly blessed because you are willing to make this sacrifice. To give up, that you are willing to give up their love for you. It's very cool. Here's a question. What can I do to heal and continue to love my partner who has betrayed me with lies, spreading lies about his perceptions of me without talking to me about it, and cheating online by talking sexually with a colleague. I'm trying to see if I can rise above this and heal and help him heal and not walk away. Well, it depends. You said my partner. If you're not married to this person, I'd say walk away. Gosh, if you're not married to this person, you don't have a long-term commitment to this person, and this person's cheating and talking, get out. This person's proved that he's not interested in an unconditionally loving relationship, and you've proven that you don't understand what unconditional love is because you're willing to stay and take it. Get out. Learn more about unconditional love and start over again at some far distant point from now. Start over again with somebody else, and in the meantime, learn what unconditional love is with people with whom there is absolutely no hint of a sexual relationship. So, if you're not married to this person, move on. If you are, it's an entirely different deal. Then you're going to need to admit the fact that this is a pretty poisoned, unhealthy relationship. Say that to your partner and say, let me tell you about the 100 ways that I've contributed to the lack of health in this relationship. Not that it's your fault that he's behaving the way that he is. No. Actually, we don't know whether this is a him or a her. Wait a minute, or do we? See if I can figure this out. Really can't tell whether it's a him or her. And say, if this relationship's unhealthy, I've contributed in the following 100 ways, and I would suggest reading Real Love and Marriage, and you'll be able to find the 100 ways you've contributed. And then you learn enough about real love, unconditional love, and get it from other people that you can bring it back and contribute that one essential characteristic to this relationship so that it can improve. So a lot of this depends on whether you're in a committed long-term relationship with this person. But either way, you're going to need to learn a whole lot about telling the truth about yourself. Because it's not about changing your partner. It's about changing you first. Because until you're different, you're not going to be able to do anything to help your partner. It's always about you first. Here's somebody who says, I have a friend that is very knowledgeable. This person is in my loving group and often takes every chance to share every bit of knowledge that is in her brain. Could be very daunting. Some of it is helpful and some of it is just too much information. When talking with me, whether I ask for it or not, she will give advice and will not stop giving it until she is satisfied. Most of the time it seems that she's not really listening. It's more like she's just searching to find the mistake in what I'm saying or what others are saying to offer advice or to correct what's being said. She'll even make false assumptions and begin to give her advice regarding that. So this person clearly enjoys power and loves to control people so that she can get that feeling. When I try to tell her that I have enough or let her know that I have it handled, I can sense that she feels defeated. Again, proving that she likes power. Or she will respond by saying something like, "Oh, I get it. You're just drowning. I used to be right where you are," and then she'll continue on with more unhelpful advice. What would be the most loving way to deal with this person when she's behaving this way? Now, notice that you say that she just goes on and on and on. And so the mistake is not hers. The mistake is whose? The mistake is yours. Because, see, you feel it's your choice to let her go on and on. Just because somebody is a controller and likes to come in and criticize and keep giving advice, like you say here, will not stop until she is satisfied. Well, who put her in charge of the conversation? She's having the conversation with you. There are two people in this conversation. And a conversation, now memorize this, A conversation is over when either person says, "I'm done." And apparently you missed that memo. So you need to understand that it's over when you say it's over too. So when somebody isn't being helpful to you, you need to speak up sooner. And you can do that in a very loving way. You don't have to interrupt and be ugly. We have come to believe that if we stop somebody from speaking, that has to be done rudely. We think interrupting is rude. No, not at all. Anybody who is speaking to us does so by way of invitation. And at any time we wish, we may withdraw the invitation. Do you understand the difference? See, we think it's interrupting them. Au contraire. If you're speaking to me, you're doing so because I'm giving you permission. And at any moment, I may withdraw my permission and say, "Oh, well, I've decided now that I don't wish to listen anymore." And you don't understand that. So you could say, for example, you could just simply put up your hand, because you're right, some people can speak while they're inhaling. So you can put up your hand, and almost everybody recognizes this sign. If they don't understand, because I've seen some people keep speaking when you do this. I have discovered that no one will keep speaking if you do this. Simply put your hand in front of your face. You don't have to put it in front of theirs, which is kind of rude. But if you put your hand in front of your own face, everyone will stop and say, "What?" Because it looks very strange. And so then you can say, "This isn't helping me." That's all. You can say, "This is not helping me." Notice you're making it about you. You don't have to say, "You are not being helpful." No. You don't have to say, "You're being stupid" or "You're being intrusive." No. It's not about them. You say, "This isn't helping me." And then if they say, "Well, but I just," what you say, no, it's not about whether what you're saying is helpful. It may be very helpful to somebody else. It's just not helping me. It's just confusing me. Or if they could then continue and say, "Oh, like you said, I get it, you're just drowning." You say, "That's not helping me either." You just keep repeating yourself. And then you could even continue and say, "At this point, I'm not really looking for information, and I'm not really looking for advice or direction or options or to be fixed. At this point, what I'm really looking for is just, I guess, support. That's all. Just for a feeling of support, not words. Not really looking for more words. Sometimes I'm looking for options, but not really today." And if she keeps speaking, again, you can put your hand up. And if she then chooses to be offended, you can say, "This isn't about you. This was about my issue." Because remember, you're the one that was speaking. And then if she still continues to be offended, remember, this was your choice. It was your choice to speak, and that's her choice whether she decides to become offended. But you're not in charge of whether somebody decides to be offended about a thing. So don't get excited. A man wrote me and asked me, he was asking about where he could find more real love in his life, and I was suggesting that he participate in more conference calls. And, I've talked to this man on a number of occasions, and he was telling me they didn't have time to participate in conference calls. And it's been my experience, and I'm just going to mention this to everybody who's here because I've heard this on a number of occasions, that when people tell me that they're too busy to be involved in conference calls, that very often what people are saying is that there are a number of options. See, and this may not fit for anybody who's listening, but if it does resonate, then it might help you. Is that we're looking for a way for real love to change our lives without investment. We're looking for a way for real love to change us without working. And conference calls involve effort. In other words, we can be lazy. Laziness really kills us when it comes to real love. Real love requires investment of our time, but also investment of risk, investment of laying down our fears. And that brings us to the second part, and that is that we're afraid of people. We're afraid of being rejected. We're afraid of what people will think of us. And when we get on a conference call or when we're in anywhere we go, the only way we're going to experience real love is to share the truth about ourselves. That's true everywhere, including conference calls. If we tell people who we really are, even over the phone, there's that horrifying pregnant pause that exists between when we speak and when somebody finally says something, where we're afraid that somebody's going to laugh, say absolutely nothing, which can be just as scary because then we fill that in with, oh, well, we must be idiots, where somebody criticizes us, where somebody gives us advice that we don't want to hear. And the other thing that I've seen that keeps people from making use of conference calls is that they want to be special. We think that in order to be worthwhile, we have to be special, different, better than other people, at the upper end of the bell curve. And on a conference call, we're with a whole group of people. And with a whole group of people, we can't be better dressed. We can't be smarter than other people. We can't have better professions, better careers, better bodies, better looking, better... We're just kind of like everybody else. And I've seen quite a number of people in my life who don't participate in teleconference calls because they can't be better than somebody else. It was very humbling for me to attend my first few AA meetings and discover that I was a drunk and an addict just like everybody else, and I wasn't smarter than or better than anybody else. My sponsor in my first, 50 AA meetings was the local driver of the garbage truck. And he was my hero. He was sober. I wasn't. He was happy, and I wasn't. And it was humbling. So I suggest that we do whatever it takes to overcome our fears, laziness, and specialness to participate in conference calls and get the love that we need. So it's been exciting to be with you. I suggest that you investigate on the website the seminar in California, November 1st and 2nd. Email me if you'd like to learn about the new workbook entitled 40 Days to Real Happiness and Real Love and Happiness in Your Marriage. And we look forward to being with you a week from today on Tuesday the 21st as we once again learn that it's always about real love. We'll see you in a week.